Okay, so good evening, everyone. And on behalf of the Social Events Committee, I would like to welcome you all to this first edition of the ILSA/Global Governance Talk of this year. So for those really quickly who aren't familiar with ILSA, we are the International Law Student Association here at the Hague University. And we are comprised of three main committees, namely the main events committee, which sort of focuses on academic events and workshops, and then the social events committee, which is us, who are organizing the talk today, and then the ILSA Journal, who produce a yearly journal with student publications. So if anyone is interested in submitting a piece for the 2020-2021 ILSA Journal, we have posts on our Instagram account explaining anything related to that, so submission and deadlines. And now I would like to introduce Dr. Barbara Warwas, who will be our guest for today, and provide what will hopefully be a very insightful perspective on the research of global governance and its impact on our daily lives. So before we get started, I would just quickly like to ask you, Dr. Warwas, to talk a bit about how you became director of the Center of Expertise on Global Governance at our university and what global governance as a research center sort of aims to do.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you also for the invitation. It's really a great pleasure to be here with you today and explain to you a little bit more about our center and about our research. So starting with your first question, I have been working at THUAS for 5 years or 6 years now. I first was a full-time lecturer in law program. Then I became a lecturer 2 years ago, were a lecturer in multi-level regulation. So I shifted a little bit into research from teaching, but I still remained a part-time lecturer in law. And now I'm a full-time researcher / leading lecturer or director of the Center of Expertise. And I think the easiest answer to your question, how I became the director, is that THUAS underwent the research transformation. So before research was done within so-called research platforms that were also associated with different faculties. But since April 2020, we have 7 centers of expertise. It has been a long 2-year-long process to get where we are now. And each Center of Expertise operates within specific faculties, and it also is composed of research groups. So I was already a lecturer, and I just applied for this position to take more of an administrative role and managerial role also in shaping the strategy and policy of research in global governance.
Okay, so what would you say are then the fundamental values that are crucial to your mission at global governance and the research that these expertise encompasses?
Yes, so I already realized that I didn't answer your second question, which was what exactly we do. Our Center of Expertise on Global Governance, our mission is foremostly to share knowledge on what global governance is and how it works in practice. So we really want to work, and we do work with future professionals, such as yourself, students, and we explain to them through lectures, research, and other activities what global governance is in practice. Of course, our mission is more complex than that because we also work with professionals on projects. We want to improve global governance as it is now. And we think that currently global governance is underrepresented, and that there is also a so-called information gap. So not everyone knows what global governance in fact entails, what it is, who works in the field of global governance. We want to change that. This is why we also work with people of global governance. We want to first expand the discussion on who is in fact a practitioner in the field of global governance, and then to develop new solutions for global problems together with people of global governance. So the main value values that I think are important in our mission is participation, inclusion, and collaboration. We think that now global governance is focused too, well, maybe not too much, but the traditional discourse on global governance is about states and global governance institutions. What we want to show is that there are also other actors that shape global problems, and that we need to develop collaborative solutions with those actors to make global governance more inclusive.
So how would you then say that global governance as an institution approaches these values, and in what way are these methods then related to your various areas of expertise?
Yeah, so regarding the first part of the question, I think that these values are not yet well expressed in the current practice and theory of global governance. So we think that there is quite a bit for us to do in this field to make global governance really inclusive. And we do this through our unique fields of expertise. We have three main research groups in the Center of Expertise. That is UN Chair in Peace and Justice Studies. Then we also have a Changing Role of Europe research group and Multi-Level Regulation research group. So basically we see this three unique fields. So peace and justice, public administration, and European politics, especially on lobbying, and multi-level regulation and alternative dispute resolution as very well-positioned fields through which we can tackle global problems through different perspectives and actually work towards inclusion and better participation.
Okay, so could you maybe describe sort of the day-to-day practices of various professionals within the global governance network, and sort of how these impact the daily lives of these professionals and citizens and youth?
Yes, so before I answer this question, or I think I will disappoint you because maybe I will not even answer this question, because what we want to do in our mission, we basically, the underlying hypothesis of our Center of Expertise is that we don't want to tell you students or professionals what global governance is and what professionals do. Frankly, we don't know this. We are learning this together with professionals, and that's the unique approach that we want to take. We really want to learn from practitioners, also future practitioners, including students, what global governance is and how it should look like. So I cannot answer this question to the extent that I can also identify the fields that we want to focus on. So, for example, peace and justice, migration, climate change, European politics, multi-level regulation, through which we want to approach practitioners and learn from them how they approach and solve global problems. And the same concerns students. We want to confront what we learn from practitioners with what students want to know and learn about global problems and global governance. Because I think that students are the ones who will be, we call them future professionals. So you will be the ones who are solving problems, and you have to also be part of our center. Of course, you don't have to, but it would be fantastic if you were, and shape with us the agenda and tell all of us what global governance is. So just to summarize, we really want to, we call it like a knowledge ecosystem that we want to build. So we really want to learn from different practitioners within the cycle, so-called professional cycle, what global problems entail and how to address them together, and how to find collaborative, innovative and interdisciplinary solutions. I think today world is is such a specific place that we can no longer say that politicians only deal with global governance or employees in municipality. I think we have to have a very broad approach and open mind to understand who the practitioners are and what they do.
So you would then also say that these practitioners are not necessarily law students, but students from any sort of field that is interested in this?
Oh, absolutely. So take, for example, climate change. We think that climate change is all about policies, especially interstate policies. And so it wouldn't be only law, but it would be also politicians who deal with climate change. But for us, it's a little bit broader. We look at the bottom of the, let's say, chain. And for us, we want to approach companies that deal with waste management or people who are working in garbage trucks to ask them how they approach global governance and climate change, because they are dealing with the problems in their daily basis, but we always forget to reach out to them, and we develop policies for them. So the spectrum is really broad. It doesn't only focus on law, it focuses on many different professions, and especially these local and bottom-up practices are also crucial, because so far global governance is about top-down approaches, but I think we have to look earlier within the pyramid.
So you would also say, I guess, then that sort of the research of global governance and the development of this research is very sort of dependent on technology as well, and sort of how with sort of as we go on in the years, obviously we get more and more developed with the different types of technology that we use. I would guess that that has been very important in the field of global governance.
Absolutely. And we are also interested, I think technology affects every field today. It affects how we do research. So methodologically, it also affects us. And we do have more innovative research methods in the center, for example, citizen science, which is the type of research that you do through citizen science platforms. And they involve a lot of new technologies to collect data, to analyze data. But then, of course, the new solutions for global governance really imply technological developments and advancement. And especially now in the COVID era, where we have all the measures in place, technology gives us, of course, some new solutions, offers new solutions for innovation. There are also challenges, but it's absolutely the relationship with technology is crucial in global governance. And we do consider a project on the so-called Academy of Global Governance Innovators. And I actually think that technology will be one of the topics that we have to approach.
So speaking of projects, that's sort of the next topic area I'd like to delve into. So I'd like to ask you about some of the recent projects that have been organized at the Center of Expertise, and more specifically, the Global Challenges in 365 Days and the Community of Practice in Global Governance.
Yes, so just before I speak about these two projects, I think it's important to stress that we do have projects that we now are developing within the topic global governance. We also have a senior researcher, Dr. Sylvia Berg, who is working directly in the topic on global governance. But that being said, we also have many projects within lectorate and so research groups, and they all directly or indirectly deal with global governance. So I really encourage all of you to have a look at our website. It's getting into shape. So hopefully soon we will also have a great overview for you on all of our projects. But these two specific projects that you mentioned indeed deal mostly with global governance, and they have been just developed, or actually global governance in 365 days is super new, and it hasn't yet started. So starting with this project, it's actually something that I hope will be of interest to you. What we really want to do through this project, so the idea comes from me. I think that I just want to have a conversation starter with you students on how you see global governance, what are the problems of global governance, what are the challenges. So this project is basically for students. It's a student-driven project too. So we had just a vacancy for a coordinator of this project, and everything is still up in the air how it will be shaped. I really always like students to be very proactive. So in sum, this project is to learn from students and document how global governance looks from the perspective of students. What we want to do is to have a coordinator and a group of students, not only from THUAS, but eventually from all over the world, on how they what they think global governance is, and what are the historical dates that needs to be documented, or what are the news items in the field of global governance. So we will be it's a project also loosely based on the citizen science methodology, where lay people can do research. So we just want to document some facts, events that are relevant for global governance for students. And in 1 year time, we want to analyze this and create a booklet where we will draw some findings for future directions of research for students on global governance. So again, that's the main idea, but it's up to students to shape it the way they want. And this project can also be in collaboration with the UN Youth Initiative that is run by the chair in UN Peace and Justice Studies. Yeah, the sky is the limit, basically. For the second one, the community of practice is the community of practice is a separate methodology of for people to meet and work on projects. So in usually communities of practice are developed for specific problems, so that professionals and people from different fields, it can combine different disciplines, can meet regularly towards some end goal. And our community of practice is first started, we had 2 meetings. I believe it started in September or October, and we are discussing, we are defining those problems that we want to solve in our center of expertise. So community of practice is a meeting for lecturers, researchers, and students who are also involved in global governance, but frankly, everybody is invited. And we meet regularly every 2 months to discuss specific projects and problems and find a solution at the end of the year to solve them.
Okay, so these projects, would you say that these are sort of for the majority of the part, are they student driven, or is there sort of a idea of lecturers behind these? Sort of how are they organized?
Yeah, so community of practice is not necessarily student driven as such, because it's a community of different types of practitioners involving future professionals. But again, there is a lot of freedom and room even for students who participate to shape those projects as they want. The student project on global governance in 365 days is entirely student driven. So as I said before, we really want to know from students in most of our projects what to do research about, what the problems are. And of course, we do have also projects, traditional projects, where we have questions already defined, research questions. So we are just looking for assistance from students to help us conduct this research. And then maybe without going into details, I can already mention that we have also one project in the pipeline, which is the already mentioned Academy of Global Governance Innovators. And we really hope that this project can start in September, and that will be also a project for students. We really want to combine a group of students and practitioners who together will be solving global challenges in the fields of expertise that the center covers. So it will be probably climate change, migration, peace and justice, multi-level regulation, and European politics. So we really hope to have this forum, a platform for students to get questions from practitioners and then have students work on those questions among themselves, and not only law students. We really hope this academy to be interdisciplinary so that we can approach global challenges from many different perspectives.
So you mentioned earlier while we were talking about the global challenges in 365 days that you were looking to work with other groups such as the UN Youth Group. Is that often something that global governance as a research center does, is collaborate with other organizations to achieve this common goal?
Yes, so I have to already make a disclaimer that I hope that you and youth doesn't divorce us because maybe they are surprised that I'm mentioning them in the context of this project. So we are really, as I said, open for collaboration with everybody, and that's part of our research methodology. We really want to learn through collaborative practices, communities of practice, and empirical or qualitative research, so surveys, interviews, etc. And for that, we really need collaboration. I think I would answer that that's the goal that all centers of expertise are striving towards, because our research always need to have this societal impact, and for that we have to have connections and contacts with practitioners and of course students and study programs. So we see ourselves, centers of expertise, as being a proxy between THUAS and study programs, including law, and the outside world and the professional practice and the society. So UN Youth is part of that too, and it also gives some linkages with the Leiden University, which is also what we do within the center, because one of our lecturers is working in Leiden University and at THUAS.
So you mentioned previously that you were also a lecturer at THUAS before. So in your opinion, how important do you think it is for students to sort of reach beyond their academic capabilities within their study areas? And how do you think that this and their participation in some research centers such as global governance, how do you think this shapes their views as they graduate from THUAS?
Well, I would like to say that it's very important to participate in the centers, in the research of the centers, and but it's up to you to decide. I think what I would really like to see in a few years at THUAS is that the situation where centers of expertise are integral part of education, and they collaborate with programs and lecturers on projects. But because we have been just created recently, it's work in progress, and I'm sure we will get there, but it takes some time. So I think that centers of expertise give this very nice opportunity to zoom out from your field of expertise. And if you are a lawyer, or if you want to be a lawyer, if you think from the perspective of international law, and even if you look into peace and justice from the perspective of law, if you reach out to us, you will get this opportunity to get a different perspective. And interdisciplinary work always gives you this extra perspective on things that help you help you first of all develop into new direction and maybe understand better what you would like to do. It can also offer some training in research skills, hopefully transferable skills. I think that's something where students could still improve. It should give you opportunity to expand your network and connect more with the professional field. And I think that that's really a great opportunity. So I really invite all of you to, if you are interested, or if you even do not know exactly what we do, to just give it a shot and maybe participate in one of our meetings of the community of practice. We are also, you will probably have questions about it, so I don't want to speak about all these initiatives that we're planning now, but I think it's really important for everybody to just give it a try and see what they can, how they can collaborate with the center, or how the center can help you. It's really, we are there for students, not the other way around, and we really want to learn from you what the global challenges in your fields are and how to solve them, because you will be working in the very near future and probably soon telling us about global governance.
Yeah, so talking about sort of this status of being a student, these projects are targeting students to sort of raise awareness about the issues that center around the topic of global governance. How would you say students in general can be made to feel seen and heard in a society where often our voices are sort of shunned on the basis of the fact that we're very inexperienced and that we have a very academic view on things, but we still sort of would like to try new things and work for different organizations? How would you sort of, I guess, describe what would you say to students in that sense?
Yeah, so it's a tough question because it goes to many different topics, coming from individual skills and characteristics of students to more general bias, systemic bias. But I do really think that we have witnessed some generational change, and now more and more professionals really seek for innovative solutions, and they really know that these solutions come from future professionals. They really know that inexperience is more of an asset rather than it's the ability to learn, and inexperience can be really seen as a positive skill or characteristic. So I would say that yes, there will be still fields and professionals and companies and potential workplace where of course you have to have experience to get an internship, or even sometimes you have to have an internship before you get an internship. Anyway, so I understand it's tough, but I would just say don't give up and be proactive, and try to make your voice heard. Look around, from Greta dealing with climate change to other fields. It's never too small. Nobody is ever too small to make a difference. And I think it's very important to just be knowledgeable. I think it's important to show yourself as a competent person. So I think it's very important for students to keep studying, to acquire skills that you can use in many different professions. But then, of course, you have to just persevere and don't give up and make your voice heard. And as I said, I think more and more programs and companies are looking for these unique skills of students. And so I hope there will be more and more opportunities. And with our center, we want to exactly change that. We want to show that we have to learn from students, because students are the future. I know it's a slogan, but that's exactly how it is.
So going back to talking a little bit about some of the research that you've done at Global Governance and sort of the issues that surround these topics, what would you say has been one of the most interesting issues you've come across while during your time at Global Governance?
Well, I think for me, interesting is what is challenging, and exactly the challenge is lack of collaboration of in global governance. I think it's quite interesting to see that global problems are, we are having actually now the shift, especially as seen now in the COVID situation, that we move back to nationalism, and we move back to these narrow solutions that are supposed to serve narrower groups of people, whereas we do not see that we all are facing basic problems like climate change. We are there together, and we have to develop collective actions. So for me, it's quite interesting to see how much how political also global governance is, but probably that's nothing new. For me, the most interesting part is that we really want to change this, and that we really want to work with students in that field. Students, young professionals, and professionals who are not necessarily, who are new or underrepresented. And I think that's what it's the most interesting for me to see that we can make some impact through that.
Yeah, so you mentioned COVID-19. So how would you say COVID-19 has impacted global governance as a field of expertise and research institution?
Well, as I said, I think it also at the beginning it shifted us back to these national approaches, and everybody was testing the waters to understand how to look for solutions. And unfortunately, I think we are still there even now in the discussion of vaccines, and there are individual states who have to fight for vaccines, and we do not have a collective responsibility or shared and collective actions. So I think that we are shifting away from globalization to nationalism, and we have to really find new solutions for problems such as global pandemic. Again, the question is how to do this. In our opinion, we have to find collaborative solution at many different levels, and that means I think that it means that we also have to look into new actors, non-state actors, regulators who also work outside the state framework of that is so familiar for many regulators, and that we have to have this, we call it polycentric approach. So we really have to let's say find a space for many different opinions and ideas, and support innovation to find common solutions to common problems.
So my next question would be, you talked before at the very beginning about sort of this information gap. And I wanted to ask if you could maybe provide us with a couple of examples of, for example, underrepresented groups within the field of global governance, and sort of how we can make their voices heard at all different types of levels of governance.
Yes, so I think I will go. So we have our slogan in the global governance, our motto is new actors, new solutions. And so new actors is something that is part of our research program and mission. And new actors mean for us exactly new actors and underrepresented actors. So first, as I said at the beginning, we mostly associate global governance with states and state sanctions institutions, big institutions of global governance, which is of course correct. We have WHO and we have other organizations developed for a reason, so we cannot of course refute them, but we also have to look into new actors. And as I mentioned, we want to see global governance as a polycentric map where we have different centers of ideas and solutions. So that would mean non-state actors, regulators, investors, those who solve problems and provide solutions outside state systems, so arbitrators, mediators, negotiators, internet regulators too. That would be how we understand new actors. And then, of course, we also have a group of underrepresented actors, and through which we see minorities and, of course, women as underrepresented actors, and also representatives of the so-called global south in the UN or in any institutions. So we are basically striving for more diversity, gender diversity, geographical diversity, and finally, underrepresented actors for us mean also those who have been working in the field of global governance for many years or decades, but they haven't been given the actual voice. So by them, I actually mean those people who work in the bottom-up practices of global governance, so-called street-level professionals, of community workers, workers of the municipalities, employees, and so on and so forth. So underrepresented actors can also mean new actors, and new actors can mean underrepresented actors. But in fact, for us, it's mostly women and minority groups, but also those who haven't been let's say, recognized so far in the discussions on global governance.
So you would say then that these underrepresented actors are a direct consequence, I guess, of sort of the levels of discrimination that we have within society, or where do these come from?
Yeah, I would say that, well, it's hard for me to say. It also depends on the actor itself and on the projects. I would say that it's the natural consequence of lack of inclusion in global governance, and the discourse on minorities that we see everywhere. So basically, of course, it follows the political discourse too, but it, of course, can be specific to global governance. So it can also mean those actors who have been just in the shadow so far and just didn't have opportunity to shine.
You mentioned inclusion previously, which is one of the, I guess, main fields or approaches within global governance. So how would you say that this sort of inclusion is promoted within the different levels of global governance?
I think that it's work in progress. I think it's also field specific. What we are trying to do, I think the first step is to discuss and disseminate knowledge to try to close this information gap too on who does work and how global governance work in practice. And then, of course, trying to make global governance more inclusive as a professional field. So in the practice, well, just to be a little bit more specific, in our research and in our project, we always want to have diverse voices in the research represented. So we always also want, it's very hard to say because I don't want to also sound patronizing. It's hard also to, say these groups are underrepresented and we are giving them the voice. It's not what exactly we would like to do. I think we just have to be also a bit more humble towards people who work around us and just learn from them. And that's what we want to do. We want to constantly update our program to see if we are actually not missing anyone, if how we can be even more inclusive, because the current discourse on inclusion also can be a little bit more patronizing. And we often speak about giving voice to minorities. And I don't think that we are in the position to give voice to anybody. Everybody already has their voice. We just have to make this voice heard a little bit, and we have some tools through which we can make this happen. So I would say it's also a tough question, but we do this in our Center of Expertise through constant revision of our program, and we really also want to be relevant, and we want to be inclusive, and we want to update this on a regular basis.
Yeah, so you've mentioned already sort of this constant need for development within the Center of Expertise. Are there any events that you're going to be organizing in the future to spread awareness about your sort of field of work, and how are you planning to involve students in these projects and events?
Yes, so of course now the current situation doesn't allow us to be as let's say, to have as many events as possible. Most of our events are online, of course, so we still do them. And many of our events are embedded in research groups. So have a look at our website and see, and also social media channels. We are, of course, advertising them. So we have a number of events in specific fields. We have them in CREU. I can already let you know that the Changing Role of Europe already is planning a very big event. So please have a look within the next month, I believe, where it will also be on the European developments and COVID-19 pandemic. We also have a we have inaugural lecture of UN Chair in Peace and Justice coming up in April. We also have an event of the Center of Expertise on UN's Women's Day. On Women's Day, which will be around 8th of March. So we have quite a few events lined up. That being said, we are also open for ideas from students, and we really want to reach out to as many students as possible. So if anybody has an idea for a student event, we would be more than happy to do this. During our work on the academy, we also are now considering annual events for the Center of Expertise, which will be geared towards students. So there are many ideas up in the air now. And again, if you would like to be part of this brainstorming process, feel free to let us know, and we will be very happy to be part of that together with you.
And this actually already brings me to my last question, which is actually sort of goes back to what we talked a little bit about before, in terms of how accessible would you say is global governance for students in terms of the resources that are available for them to learn more about the different fields, more specifically of global governance?
Yeah, so I think that there is because of this information gap, and participation gap, global governance may not necessarily be the most accessible field to students at the moment. But again, I think that's why our center exists, and it's also, I think, a great opportunity for students to look for resources or to shape the discourse on global governance through student-driven projects or through activities. So that's also what we're trying to do through our project on global governance in 365 days and so on and so forth. So I would say there is a lot to improve and work on, and that of course, on one hand makes me sad because I would like students to have all the resources as possible, but on the other hand, it's a good thing for us in a sense that we can work towards this, and we can try to develop materials and projects for students to engage them a little bit more. And I always say that it's also up to students how they approach the topic, and I'm sure that you can be quite proactive in finding your own resources or resources of your own interest. It's also part of this so-called student-driven learning, when you actually define what you want to learn and how you want to learn. So from the classical point of view, even if there is not enough information, I'm sure there are new sources through which you will be able to learn about global governance, even probably better than some of older researchers can do this.
So I think we've already talked a bit about this before, but maybe you could give me a more detailed answer of sort of how do you think that students benefit from being involved in organizations such as global governance, and how do you think that benefits them going on sort of prior to their academic, I guess, experience?
Yeah, so I think the main benefit is that you are basically creating your professional future, and it's not necessarily, of course, you are developing yours. The first thing is, I understand your question more through the involvement also with our center. So always involvement in new initiatives, especially those who are not necessarily defined in 100%, give you a lot of freedom to develop new product or new material and develop your skills. Engagement with global governance, I think, is beneficial for every student because every professional will be solving global problems. At least I think for most of students in international and European law, but also in other programs, global problems and challenges will come up, even if you don't realize this. So engaging with global governance will basically mean creating your professional landscape for the future, shaping how problems are solved, telling us how innovation should look like. So, building up your future work. I think it's a great benefit and incentive.
So that actually concludes my part on this whole talk. I'd like to thank you very much. This was super interesting and sort of, eye-opening, I guess. I'm now going to pass the floor to my colleague who's going to answer any remaining questions within the audience, if there are any.
So if anybody has any questions, if you don't mind putting your hand up or typing into the group chat, and I'll read them out. Yeah. So I assume that's that, unless anybody has anything else to add. Is there anything you would like to add, Dr. Warwas, since we've been asking the questions, but maybe there's some information you'd like to share with us or anything else to add?
Yes, I would like to again stress that we do have our research agenda and we do have our research projects with practitioners, but we really want to work with students and for students. And our center will make our program complete when you actually when we have more involvement from students, and we are open for collaboration. So I really invite everyone to email us and reach out either to our program coordinator or to myself. We are always trying to be responsive, and it would be really great to work with you and for you. So, and on that note, I have to say that we still struggle a little bit with, of course, we have one of your colleagues, Georgia, who is here present, who is also helping us out greatly on communications, but we always want to reach out to as many students as possible. So we would really happy if you could also, you know, if you find it useful and interesting, if you could maybe not be a platform, but advertise our events, or at least reach out to students about our initiatives, because we really want to reach out to as many students as possible, and it's still work in progress. So it would be really great to also have your help and ideas. We really also want to learn from you, because as I said, global governance is a very global challenges maybe are not changing that much, although with the pandemic we can see they can be also quite dynamic, but the solutions and innovation, it comes also from future professionals and you. So hopefully we can soon work more intensively together.
Perfect, thank you. So there is one question, and I think you may have kind of answered it, but it says, when you say you're open for collaboration, what kind of ideas are you open to? Is it workshops, student-run events, or research ideas? What type of collaboration is on the cards?
Yes, so again, sorry for being so vague, but we want to be vague on purpose, because I think that if we are strict and define what we want to do too clearly, we will lose this dynamics that we that will steer our research. So I want to say all. We are interested in all, in workshops, in research ideas, and in yeah. So please. Have a look at the website and maybe something specific interests you. But if you want to also develop some project, that's also fine. And we are developing a network of students working on global governance with us. So it would be also a great start.
Perfect, thank you very much. And if there is no more questions, I think that will conclude our first meeting. Thank you so much for this talk. It's been really eye-opening and definitely something very, very interesting and something to really get involved with. So thank you so much for being here.
Again, my great pleasure anytime, and please reach out, and I hope we can meet each other very soon. And please stay safe and healthy and have a nice evening.